What's going on, everybody? I'm Bobby. Welcome back to Motor Lodge Garage. Today is the second update for Krusty the Camaro. As you can see, we are out here filming on location in the North Pole, where it has been approximately negative 40 degrees for like 7 months now. So I was finally able to sit down, put a list of parts together and things and service that Krusty the Camaro is going to need to be ready for this season, hopefully. I wanted to give you guys kind of an update on where we're at and what we've got in store for this thing. So let's run through that real quick. As you can see, this thing is still pretty musty, but we have a good list of parts and everything else that we need to run through. So we need to start out with the VAT system. That's the vehicle anti-theft system. So the previous owner and the guy before him actually tried to bypass the VAT system. I'll show you guys real quick. So grab a flashlight. Under here, the previous owner had thrown in a button to bypass the VAT switch. There's actually an aftermarket low jack up here as well. We're going to have to remove all that. So I went ahead and purchased the resistor kit from eBay to bypass this whole system. One, because this is a more convoluted setup than what we actually need. And two, if you look real close right there, that's the little button. I forgot how long this lead was, and I actually shut it in the door and destroyed the button. So that doesn't work anymore. So needless to say, that thing needs to be replaced. The previous owner also lost the original key, and that was why he had to bypass it in the first place. So I'm going to get some new keys cut to avoid, double resistance through the key, through the transponder, and we'll just hope that this thing can get running, because right now it won't even crank. So move back around, back over to our list. Don't mind all of my plumbing supplies on the floor. I had to replace my water heater. After the VATS is done, we need to jump on the battery, and you can't really read that. This thing, I bought a new battery for it when I got it, but it has been sitting now for almost 2 years, and that thing, I'm pretty sure it's not going to hold a charge anymore. Hopefully, maybe it will. I won't have to buy a new battery, but we'll see. After that, as you guys can tell, we need to wash her. Krusty is true to her name. She is an ugly, dirty girl. This thing was parked in a field when I bought it, and the guy drove it over here and parked it in here and has not moved since. It's been building up cobwebs and dust, and she needs some love. That's for sure. So once she's all cleaned up, she's going to need some brakes pretty bad. I can say when the guy drove this thing over here, he was coming down that hill right there trying to hit my driveway and almost could not stop in time. She was squealing pretty bad coming down the hill. He finally got him to lock up right before the driveway and just slid for like the last 20 feet because it was raining that night. And he had a lot of momentum coming down the hill. But yeah, those things are bad. I have all the parts up in the other garage. That'll be one of the first projects after the VATS is done to get started. So once the brakes are done, next up is going to be the handbrake required drift car parts. So I'm going to get the Duncan Motorsports kit for this car. He's one of the only people out there that makes drift car parts for these cars. It's obviously not a very common drift car. But he has a shifter boot adapter to bolt your handbrake directly to the tunnel. He's got the dual caliper brackets to put on, and I just have to get a stock 92 to 97 Camaro rear caliper and then additional brake pads, and we'll be good to go there. So once the handbrake is installed and done, the next thing to be done, and arguably what probably should be the first, is going to be the coilovers. Handbrake's just a cool guy part, and I want it, so I'm not worried about it. The coilovers anyways, these things did not have a tremendous suspension on them when they came out of the factory, and it certainly isn't that great 30 years later. So I want to throw on some biking performance coilovers, simple single-way adjustable shocks. Entry-level drift car, nobody needs two-way adjustables when you're just getting started. You're going to do more harm than good. It's almost too much adjustability for when you're just getting started out here. Shocks will help stiffen up the ride a little bit in the front. Let us dial in some forward bite, side bite on the rear. It's probably going to be the most noticeable, as it usually is, modification for any drift car, especially this one. So once handbrake and coilovers are done, the next thing in the trio of most important parts to put on an entry-level drift car is going to be aftermarket bucket seats. So the stock seats in these cars are not very good to begin with. There's no bolstering to them. They're not very sturdy. Even just sitting in there, just wiggling back and forth, I can get these things to flex a good bit. Granted, I'm a bigger guy, so that probably has something to play into it. But if these things are going to move around like that with me sitting still in this car, when I start hooking this thing sideways, they're not going to help at all. They're not going to hold me in. So an aftermarket set of seats to keep me in the car will be good. Plus, in this right now, my head already hits the roof. So I'm going to have to get some fixed seat brackets to kind of lower the seat, probably drop it back a little bit, see if that'll help me clear, because I'm hitting the roof, like I said, without a helmet on. So once I have to start putting a helmet on and everything else, and eventually adding a roll cage in, that's just going to further complicate the problem. So once we're past the required trio of modifications on your entry-level drift car, your handbrake, your coilover, and your seats, the next one, everybody's favorite, is going to be the angle kit. These cars factory have an atrocious amount of angle. I think it's like 24 degrees from stock. So with any amount of drift that you try and do beyond, the accidental slide, this thing is going to spin out immediately. I want to work with Duncan Motorsports, Duncan Performance, use their angle kit. They're one of the only ones on the market that I know of for these cars. I think there's one other guy out of California that I spoke with a little bit. We'll see how that plays out, but their kits run between 50 and 55 degrees of angle, which for an entry-level drift car is going to be more than enough. They're relatively inexpensive compared to some of the kits like the FDF offers and YSFAB. They don't even make kits for this car. Plus, selfishly, probably a little bit arrogantly, it's a dumb reason, but it's a reason nonetheless. Both of those kits extend the bottom of the lower control arms, like 2.5 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in there, which gives it a pretty good amount of angle. It is still a functional amount of camber that it puts on these cars, but I don't know what it is. Something about seeing old muscle cars with amounts of camber that they probably should not have. They look so tough. But at least it'll still be a functional amount. But yeah, it's going to help the look of the car too. So the last couple of mods, and probably the most important but the least glamorous, these cars have a OptiSpark instead of a distributor on them, like some of the old small block Chevys. The OptiSparks quite often go bad and need to be replaced. When I bought this car, the guy I bought it from had just replaced the OptiSpark. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to need to replace the OptiSpark, because since he replaced it, it's run all of maybe an hour. But I did read that you can swap in the 411 PCM out of the old Chevy vans, like the 90s work vans, and it basically negates the purpose of the OptiSpark, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So that might be something that I do. I'm going to do some more research on it to see if it's actually worth it or not. But from what I've read, it's a pretty cheap modification to not have to worry about Opti issues anymore. So once the Opti is done, the next thing on the docket, I have a note for the exhaust. It already has long tubes and an exhaust on it. The previous owner had thrown those on there, but the clip back in this corner, it's off the muffler to the last section of the tailpipe. It became separated, that he lost the clip or something. So whenever you go over any bumps or anything, that last section just drags on the ground. Should just be a quick clip to get everything back together. Thing sounds pretty good. I'll have to show you guys once I actually get it running again. After that, we are going to run onto the headlights. So as you guys know, on these older cars, the headlights from the factory are not great. And also, as you can see, this one is broken. So it needs all new headlights. I don't love the stock headlights. So I want to get like a 9-inch light bar to stick in there on each side. Colin at Hot Laps on Instagram, I saw his Camaro running that, and it looks pretty dope. Plus, it's going to be a hell of a lot brighter than these, so I can actually see when I'm driving at night. But that's simple enough. We'll run through the last couple really fast. Paint, this thing is going to get a rattle can job. It is not worthy of anything more than that. But I want to dress her up a little bit, make her look a little bit better, because I'm hoping we can eventually pick up some partners. And she is definitely not going to pick up any partners looking like this. So once the paint's done, steering wheel, I want to throw a quick release in this thing. Some of you might not be super familiar with 4th gen Camaros. But these things actually have doors that are insanely long, which you would think means that these things, it goes, for guys that aren't familiar, it goes from right there all the way over to there. They're like 4 feet long almost. But even with that said, the roof is so low, and again, bigger guy, these things are kind of hard to get into, so quick release will help that out a little bit. And the last real item on the list is not really a modification item, more of a repair item, is the front main seal on this thing. When I bought it, it was leaking like a sieve. When the guy backed it into the garage, it was every 6 inches or so there was a drop of oil as he was coming in. So it's leaking pretty bad. I haven't done a front main seal on one of these before. I've heard it's kind of a pain because the harmonic balancer is a 2-piece balancer versus the standard, most cars have a single-piece balancer, but we'll find out. Can't be that hard. And once that's done, it's really just final prep items. She's going to need wheels and tires. Obviously, it's not really on the list. That's kind of a given. Drift car, you're going to run through them. Fluid check and then a nut bolt check before we are on to any events this year. So that's about it. It's a long list for a cheap car, but I think it's the minimum that we're going to need to go out, be able to perform, and hopefully pick up some partners. That would be awesome for the season. So with all that said, I want to give you guys a huge shout out. We've had a lot of support, even just in the last 3 weeks since we kicked this thing off. We're approaching 300 followers on TikTok. I stopped counting at like 2,000 interactions with comments and whatnot on TikTok. You guys are awesome. I want to thank my family for being supportive, my friends, co-workers for being supportive. I want you guys to know, I'm going to put it up on the screen here, the logo's finally done. So I've been working with a close family friend, Sage Santora. Shout out Sage Santora. It's at SW Santora on Instagram. Check her out if you need any design assistance or logo needs. But just don't take her off my schedule because she's got other stuff she's working on for me. That said, that means that merch is coming soon, hopefully. So I have a local print shop that I found that is working on some pricing, trying to help us out. I'm hoping to have at least 2 more designs done before we release any merch. I'm going to look into probably setting up a Patreon store, hopefully. So anybody interested, thank you guys again. Thank you in advance. We're going to get some test pieces done, and so we can take some actual product photos. You guys can see what it looks like. We're going with a higher end shirt, so it actually fits, screen printing, the whole nine. Not that a lot of you guys probably care. If you're a nerd like I am, it's going to wear better. For the guys that want to wear this and wrench on their cars, it's going to last a lot longer, and I think it's going to be awesome. You know, I wanted to start my own apparel thing for a long time, and having this shot is just, it's crazy. So again, I appreciate the support. Thank you guys again. Peace out.